Your presence here. Now I give the floor to the three other speakers. Thank you so much for your presence here. And so I invite here to take the floor here the next three experts. And so Jeremy Olivier, Head of Internet Policy Strategy di Ofcom, sul tema proprio del punto di vista di un regolatore nazionale, in particolare sul tema dei minori. Poi Madeleine de Kock-Bonning, Chair of the European Regulators Group for Audiovisual Media Service, ERGA, often mentioned, e Presidente di ERGA, e sul tema proprio dei regolatori e del ruolo di ERGA, così abbiamo modo di chiarire meglio alcune questioni. E poi non Alejandro Moledo, ma in sua sostituzione abbiamo Mia Ahlgren del European Disability Forum, e siamo molto interessati a avere un confronto con voi. Abbiamo già preso degli impegni, le relatrici l'avevano già apertamente preso in Commissione insieme a noi per rincontrarci in occasione della direttiva AVMDS sul tema dell'accessibilità. Allora, so che c'è qualcuno che perde un treno, lei, and so I give the floor to Mrs. Ahlgren. Prego.
Thank you very much. I'm very pleased to be here, and I thank you for the European Disability Forum to present some issues on accessibility. As you may know, the European Disability Forum is an umbrella representing about 80 million Europeans with disabilities, and is an organization based on human rights. And the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, you may not know, but it's the first UN convention that encompasses ICT. And the EU has ratified the convention, and so has 166 states all over the world. Iceland was the other day, actually. And access to media, according to the convention, is an unconditional right. And it's connected to the possibility to use your freedom of expression, because if you cannot access information, you cannot take a part and be fully participant in society. So it's very clear that products and services open to the public must be accessible, and it's both public and private. And it calls for minimum standards to be developed involving organizations representing persons with disabilities. And as we all know, next slide, please. The Article 7 of the current AVMSD calls for gradual accessibility for persons with hearing and visual impairments. And some parts connected to accessibility are also covered in the telecom package, covering interoperability and must carry and cooperation. But all of these regulations are quite soft. And we were quite worried from the European Disability Forum when the Commission took away Article 7 from the directive. And we were also worried when the Committee of Culture took away audiovisual media services from the European Accessibility Act. And we will try to explain now why both legislations are needed. Next slide, please. May I show you here, this is an image to the left. When you type person of disability in, a clip art a couple of years ago, you would get an image of a person, not even a person, almost invisible. It's a black and white image of a wheelchair, and you can just get a notice of somebody sitting there. This was actually the image of disability. And if you typed a TV audience, then you would get 4 happy soccer fans watching television. But maybe one of these guys has dyslexia and another one has a hearing impairment. I think it's very important to know that accessibility is necessary for some persons, and it's beneficial for everybody almost. And I will explain more about that later. And I think also we have the demographic situation in all over the world where people are getting older, but they are also more active and more into ICT. So we have to forget about that old image and get to the present. Next slide, please. So accessible, there have been some studies from the European Commission in 2013 when we could see that accessible content is increasing thanks to the regulation, but it's still very low. If we talk about subtitles, for example, in some countries you only have, well, most European countries have subtitles of some sort, but some of them are limited to when you use them for translated content. And some countries have quite low figures, while France and Netherlands and the UK report 100%. So it's a big difference. If we talk about sign language, in most countries there is nothing at all. And then we have the leading example in Europe is Portugal. Portugal reports 3 channels with content from 7 to 16% of their content. How come? We'll come back to that later. With audio description, we have figures almost the same, that many countries have nothing at all, or maybe 1 or 2 shows a year. Imagine just being able to watch 1 or 2 shows a year. But it's emerging quickly, actually, audio description. And leading here is the UK, where there are several media service providers, broadcasters, both public and commercial, that exceeds the limit, the regulated quota, quite a lot. Some reporting 15 and 24%. Something that hasn't been monitored is spoken subtitles. That is, that you can listen to subtitles if you can't read them. And there's actually a requirement in Finland, for example, and it's one of the cheapest ones. So that is not reported yet. When I show this image, there are some icons here also, and I can tell you they are not standardized over Europe. These ones are used from my home country, Sweden. Next slide, please. When we talk about accessibility, we always talk about quantity, quality, and costs. And I would like to give you a good example of a small local channel, Catalan TV, bilingual. They can produce customized subtitles, even subtitles that are for the deaf and hard of hearing. That includes, sound effects and so on. And they have the possibility to allow the user to change the font size, the position and the background and so on. And they are doing live subtitles, about 80% of their content. And that I got the price for that. It's less than €1 per minute. And the going rate in Spain, I got from a researcher, it's 50 cents of euro per minute. So I think it's really possible to do something. They are also pioneers in audio description. They have about almost 1,000 hours per year last year, and sign language interpretation daily. So it is possible. And again, Portugal in sign language, they have advanced web live solutions that you can watch worldwide. You can follow, if you speak Portuguese in another part of the world, you can follow these. And there is a very strong regulation from 1998, but still they are exceeding the rates. So this is supposed to be the most expensive access service, but it's possible to do. Again, there is another study from EPRA. Next slide, please. The European Platform of Regulatory Agencies. They show a very interesting comparative study where you can see how these regulations in Europe are different. Some address that you have to be able to promote the service. Imagine if you have that 1 or 2 shows a year, you must really be able to find it, don't you? And they are also addressing that there are some solutions for additional funding. So, for example, in my country, Sweden, if you want state funding to make a film, you have to have subtitles. So then the broadcaster can procure the film with subtitles or audio description, and it doesn't cost them anything at all. So raising this demand is very important. I'll go to the next slide, please. And I'd like to come to the importance of the regulatory agencies, the monitoring. because that is really the key. We have the comparative study that I mentioned from EPRA, and they are also a network where they spread news, what is going on. And then we have ERGA, who will present a little bit later here. They have a task force now on accessibility. And what they are doing, they are looking into the value chain, because you know that in some places you can have an access service being produced, like spoken subtitles, for example, has been existing since 2004 in Sweden, and you still need 2 set-top boxes, and there's no user who can operate that complicated system, so it doesn't reach the user. And the problems are related to standards, mandatory requirements and so on, and a lot of other things. So this is really one of the reasons why you need the European Accessibility Act, to make sure that the access service you produce actually reach the consumer. Another example is subtitles. We've had problems with quality. I see Ofcom over here, and you know all about that. I mean, if the rate of the speed is so fast that you can't be able to follow it, to read it, or if there's a big delay between what is being said and what is being read, and if you are lip reading and you need that help, then it's no use. All the efforts you put into this, they have to really come across to the user. So that is why monitoring of the whole chain is important. And there are good examples, so we can share these good examples, we can progress. And it's really no choice. I mean, the human rights perspective and the ratification calls for this. So I would also like the next slide, please. If we look at the US regulation on accessible media, there's Obama there. He signed the 21st Century Communication Video Accessibility Act. I made that, CVAA, and in October 2010, and it's shown amazing progress. This is a very different kind of legislation because it's progressive. So it's progressive on quota, and it's progressive on scope. So, for example, Netflix is covered, and Netflix is now doing this kind of procurement when they buy things. So they ask for audio description and so on, and they get it. And another thing, and I think that could be beneficial for those Europeans who are English-speaking, but for those speaking another language, it would probably not go there. And then we have also it's stretching out to online education. And online education, you know, this could be very beneficial for many, because when you have the metadata of the subtitles, then you can search for content in a video, and you will get to the exact spot where that word is being told. You have it in Italy, I know. So that is really very good, and you can find contents also with audio description, I heard the other day. So there's a lot of good things about that, apart from more people being able to learn. So the success factor is enforcement, monitoring reports, and they have a very good grievance mechanism as well. So, and they report enormous price drops, because, of course, when you have a high demand, then you cut the prices. So next slide, please. Yeah. I would like to finish on a very positive mode, because regulation could also be a driver for innovation. When we look at the future, we see, or even now, we have apps to access even subtitles, audio description and so on, and we look at these glasses, we can get sign language in there. So technology can turn accessibility from a problem to an opportunity. And we can have a customization for everybody. And when I say that, I would like to recall back on those soccer fans, because, you know, sign language is really an image. It's an extra image. So what you put in that could also be a focus on your favorite soccer player, Ibrahimovic, or whatever. And the audio description is sound. It's an extra sound. So if you watch television and you want soccer, you could have your favorite commentator. That's the thing. We can use it for the values that we want to protect, or we could use it for commercial reasons. So remember that. And it also opens for new services and new job opportunities. And the last slide, I would like to conclude. I'm trying to do this quickly, not to lose time. That, of course, legislation is needed to match the demography, the ICT, the social cohesion and human rights. So the stronger accessibility requirements you are now proposing in the AVMS directive, it's important to get the accessibility into the production chain. So it's not something that you do at the last point. It's something that you start with. The European Accessibility Act must cover audiovisual media too, because otherwise you won't secure the whole value chain, and you risk the thing that you do a lot of production and it doesn't reach the consumer. And the monitoring of accessibility, I told you, is important to do from a user perspective, to make sure if you just cover the quota 100% and it doesn't reach the user. I don't think anybody benefits from that. And I would like to call for encouragement to multi-stakeholder exchange and research, because we think from the European Disability Forum and many of the academia as well, that EU could take the lead in media accessibility worldwide. Let's change this. We have a situation where we have a diverse countries and multilingualism, so we could do a lot. And we have the values of social cohesion. So thank you very much.
Grazie. Thank you. It's also very important that in the data dedicated to the multilingual is also this kind of language can be not excluded. Noi, lei sa che c'è stata nella presentazione fatta ora dalle relatrici, questo tema è stato focalizzato. Sorry. And you can wear this headphone. That is the case. The proposal of a rapporteur is focused on this before, e che noi abbiamo preso molto sul serio la vostra interlocuzione, e io penso che siamo tutti molto d'accordo nel rendere più effettiva e l'aspirazione che l'Europa possa diventare in qualche modo leader nell'accessibilità mi sembra un bellissimo obiettivo comune. Vorrei ora, la ringrazio molto, se lei deve andare faccia pure, non si preoccupi perché so che ha un aereo, noi siamo un po' sforato, e ora dai la parola subito a Jeremy Olivier, Head of Internet Policy Strategy di Ofcom, sul proprio